Hello, everybody. This is Coffee with Sandy. I am Sandy Shook. The mission about Coffee with Sandy is really truly to show that there are things that happen in our lives, pivotal moments in our lives that change the direction of where we thought we were going to be. And today I have the pleasure of meeting with Susan. And Susan, if you can introduce yourself, that would be great.
Oh, hi, I'm Susan Gossner, and I am a native to Colorado Springs. I'm a spouse of an Air Force veteran. He was in the Air Force for 22 years. I'm the mom of one amazing daughter. She's 19, just started her sophomore year of college. And I have a fun business in the wine industry, and I'm also a relationship banker for Community Banks of Colorado.
That's awesome. So when you were in the second grade, I don't know if you remember, grade school, let's just go back to grade school. Do you remember what you wanted to be?
I looked up to my mom in a huge way. Honestly, I saw that she did a lot for our family, kind of just kept us together. And she made some sacrifices because she wanted to be the best mom ever. And I remember wanting to be a mom someday. I thought that was like the biggest thing to call it, because like my mom was really fun and really cool. One of the things that I remember that she sacrificed was when I came into her life, I was adopted. She decided to quit smoking cold turkey. Just quit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She didn't want us kids to have that in our lives. So I really admired that sacrifice.
I guess I forgot that you were adopted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat. So do you have other siblings then?
I have one brother. He's 3 years younger than I am. Yep.
Okay.
He lives in Minneapolis.
Oh.
Yeah.
Always been there or just recent?
He's been there for several years, for probably about 20 years.
Oh, okay. Oh, so I guess I never knew that, just the crossover.
Right?
Yeah. We've known each other for how long now?
I don't know. I don't want to put a number on it.
I know.
It's a little scary. Just when last night when you were saying to our mutual friend, you're like, the MCI days, and everybody's like, wow, that was a long time ago. We're like, yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
But it just was kind of happenstance because did you take over my role
Well,
in
you
the
and
finance?
I remember, like, I actually got the position because I started out working as a temp, because I was looking for a job when we moved back from No, it must have been when we moved back from England. I keep all the moves. So yeah, when we moved back to the Colorado Springs, I was looking for a job, and I was like, the easiest way to find something quick is to go work for a temp agency. And I was able to get a position at MCI, and they liked me well enough to offer me a permanent job. And I remember, like, our cubicles were like back to back. So I would just stand up and we'd always talk.
So when you graduated high school, okay, I do bounce around a lot. So
Okay.
when you graduated high school, what were your aspirations then? Did you still want to be?
Yeah, so at that
homemaker?
time, I really wanted to be an architectural engineer. I always
You too?
loved... You
What?
did?
Yes.
Really? I wanted to be an architectural engineer because I loved just looking at different aspects of buildings and the architecture around them, the structure of them, the way they were made, and how they just had different decorative detail on the outside. So I went to Palmer High School downtown, and I just know that it's the oldest high school, first of all, in Colorado Springs. And I enjoyed walking around downtown because we had an open campus and just learning about a lot of things of the history of Colorado Springs and the different buildings. And I admired that. So I was like, oh, I think that would be a good way to enhance my artistic side and also my analytical side. And like, I was good at math, and engineering sounded like a good fit.
Yeah.
So I applied to go to college in Fort Collins and Boulder, And then I remember my parents were like, I'm not sure we could afford that. They didn't say it out loud because it was in a generation where you didn't talk about your finances openly. Then I was kind of encouraged, like, well, you could apply to UCCS. So I applied to UCCS and got in. Didn't get into their engineering program, but they said, like, if I did well enough in my first year that I could get into the engineering program. So at that time, I had already been dating my now husband. I met him when I was a senior in high school. And so he was really happy that I wasn't going to go away to college.
I'm sure.
I'd only known him for like 4 months when I was making this decision about where to go to college. And he was like, oh, you're going to be around. So that was the beginning of our
wow. And you have been married how long now?
Well, over 40 years. Wow.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not old enough to be married 40 years.
No, you're not. You were an early, college entrance and everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
After graduation, he got assigned to be a pilot at Reese Air Force Base, which is actually no longer. But so we moved to Lubbock, Texas after we got married, and I started back to college.
Wow. And that's where
jumped right in.
Did you complete?
Eventually graduated from Texas Tech because he was assigned to be an instructor pilot at Reese, which gave us enough time for me to complete my degree while we were there, just barely. Yeah, there's a little bit of a resiliency story in that.
Yes.
Because when we first got married, we only had one car, and we lived on base, so I had to figure out how to get to the campus. So I decided, well, I'll just take the bus. I'm like, I can take the bus to class.
The city bus?
The city bus. Yes. Well, when it snowed, the city bus wouldn't come. And then I'd miss class.
Oh, no.
And then I'd be like, okay, well, the bus didn't come, so I'm going to take the car. And I'd grab the car, and then I'd go park downtown, and then I'd get a ticket.
Oh.
So it was worse. It was a lot. Yeah.
Wow. But you got through it.
But I eventually got through it. Through all the moves and all the ups and downs, you figured out how to take courses however you could. And the fact that they had a couple of things that were more flexible allowed me to finish my degree while we were there. So one of the things is I sat down with the college planner when I was trying to figure out if I was going to graduate before we would move. And I had to take courses every summer, to take a full load every summer so that I could finish with my undergraduate degree before we moved. So.
And what was your undergraduate?
It's a bachelor's of science, and I didn't finish in architectural engineering. I ended up with a degree in merchandising, clothing, and textiles.
That's why you have such passion.
With like an emphasis in business.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And what did your dad do?
So he worked in title. He was a manager of a title company, Fidelity Title. And that was, so my first job was when I was like 15, and I worked for him. Is 15 or 16. I worked for him. I was telling somebody this the other day at the title company because they needed somebody to scan all the files onto microfiche. So I worked in the summers in the basement of the title company, and it was right across the street from the old courthouse. But yeah, so I sat like at the bottom of the stairs in this little corner, and I had to get all the files from the big file room and scan them through the microfiche.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I think I just put them back. I don't think we shredded them at that point. That was like just the microfiche was just kind of like a faster way to look everything up.
And you didn't want to go into title when you graduated?
I had no interest in title. I don't know. I never had any understanding of really what it meant.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Did you read any of the stuff that you would scan while you were waiting for the scanner?
I don't think I was that interested.
So what was it like growing up then? You said you have a younger brother. And did you celebrate holidays together as a family, or was your mom a stay-at-home mom then? Yeah, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Normally, like family celebrations, or big holiday celebrations, we would celebrate with friends and invite other families over. Oh, that's neat.
So my mom's family lived over in Montrose, so we didn't really go there much for holidays.
Mm-hmm.
We typically would drive over to the Western Slope for like a summer vacation to spend time with her sister or her brother, you know, and hang out there for maybe a week if we could.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any other family in Colorado Springs.
Area.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite holiday that that your family used to celebrate together?
Definitely Thanksgiving.
Mm.
I love Thanksgiving. I think that it's just a wonderful time to bring like friends together, and I love that it's not as stressful as Christmas.
Oh, you don't think so?
I don't think Thanksgiving is as stressful because like Christmas you have to do the meal and all the presents and all the decorating.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, Thanksgiving
True.
we would just normally
But you
be like,
decorate so beautifully. I mean, anytime I've ever come to an event that you have it all set up where it's like, wow, I wish I had.
Well, my mom was a really good hostess, so that must be something that I learned from her.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was little, she would host bridge parties at the house. And so when she'd have her bridge friends over, they had all of the tablecloths, like linen tablecloths and napkins, and we had to bring out the special dishes.
Yeah.
And I remember cleaning the house for the bridge party. And those ladies would just play bridge all afternoon while I was at school. And I'm like, well, I just want to know what's the food that's left over so I can have some good snacks.
I think that's the same way now. It's like when I entertain, I think, okay, whatever's left over, what do I want today?
Yeah.
With being in the Air Force, thank you very much for your service. I know
thanks.
that, thank Jesse as well, but I know that was a commitment that you had as well.
Sure.
Being a partner with somebody.
I mean, at first when you think, oh my goodness, I'm marrying this guy who's a pilot in the Air Force and we're going to see the world and what an amazing adventure. Yes, and we were incredibly blessed that we got to see parts of the world I would never been able to see with it being, a civilian versus military. But when you're a military spouse, you start to realize like the idea of being an architectural engineer, that means you're going to have a private practice. That means if you're going to be an architect, you're going to need to be in one place. And I quickly realized like that wasn't going to be something that I could do moving around. Now these days people work remotely and we live in a much more mobile society than back then. So maybe it's possible now. But back then it was like, no, I need to find a career that I'm going to have that can move with me. So that's where
you
I changed
pivoted.
and pivoted. And then like our first assignment after I graduated from college was to live in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I worked for Dillard's department stores. So I was super excited to get a new job and, start my dream career. I wanted to be a buyer, and I'd let them know I wanted to be able to move into the buyer program. So right away, they had me learn very much about the store and the way Dillard's department stores run things. That was the headquarters of Dillard's as well. So Mr. Dillard and his family would like actually come and visit this flagship store in Little Rock, and we'd had to have everything look amazing, right? So I'm very detail-oriented, meticulous. I like things to be all in their place and just right. So they would send me and move me around the store to all the departments that were trashed. Like this department, like the jewelry department, was so disorganized
well, you know what your
and
value
trashed.
is.
I was doing really well and getting promoted to like the area manager. And then I'm like, okay, so when am I going to get to go in the buyer program? And I find out from the store manager that he did not want me to be in the buyer program because he found out I was a military spouse.
Oh.
They're like, nope, we're not going to put you in that buyer program because we know you're just going to move in 2 years, or 3 years at the time. Yeah. But I'd already been like kind of there and built my reputation for that year. And then I'm like, it's time for me to move on up to the buyer program. They're like, nope.
Wow.
So that was a resiliency story in that I realized that the long-term goal of what I wanted to do wasn't going to happen. And so I decided to pivot and start a master's degree in business because I wanted to round out my resume and my experience and just have like more options in the workforce rather than working in retail, because I started to see working in retail, I was working nights and weekends quite a bit, and it wasn't going to give me the goals that I really wanted. So started a master's degree in business when we lived in Little Rock, and then before I knew it, we were sent to move to Boston.
Oh, wow.
Because my husband got offered a opportunity to do his master's at MIT, and the military is paying for that, which we're like, okay, that's amazing. We're not going to turn that down. So I need to figure out what I'm going to do. And was able to find a university that was accredited for an MBA, and I ended up starting at Northeastern University. That was another challenge because it was really expensive. It's a private university versus like a state college. But if I'd gone to like University of Massachusetts, I would have had to like commute outside of town to actually be at the accredited part of the university for the MBA.
So how did you get the education bug? I mean, because from going from, grade school to being, wanting to be a homemaker to then being a military spouse.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously,
I think part of that was just knowing what education gives you in the long term. Sometimes we get education just for the fact that we love to learn and we love to know things, and I enjoy that. I see education as an insurance policy in a way, because when you have an education, then you know that you're going to get a better job in the marketplace in general. Now, times have changed that people can get better paying jobs without that. But then as a woman, you have more credibility too in the marketplace when you have your education. And I kept finding that I was facing discrimination as a woman and finding that glass ceilings were existing as a woman. So I felt that having that education, whether I actually used my MBA in an applicable job or not, the fact that you have that and you have that degree, it does help. But also learned a real appreciation, not just for having a degree, but for the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a true process of learning when you're doing higher education. It helps you just analyze things, learn things differently. It helps you with your time management.
Figure out what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It helps your communication. It just helps. I think you become an overall better person.
That's great. That's a great definition of that.
Yeah. And then my husband, he was like, well, you know what? If something ever happens to me and now you have a master's degree, you're going to be able to be more employable.
Well, and I worked at Oracle for 22 years.
Right.
And when I was working at MCI, I had a 2-year associate's degree.
Right.
I still have the 2-year associate's degree. When I was in high school, I don't even remember what we were told, but we were given, the option, 2-year degree or the 4-year degree. And after I got done with the 2-year degree, one of my really good friends back in Minnesota went back to the state college. And I'm like, why in the heck would she do that? Right? But she did the 4-year degree after that.
Oh, yeah.
And the opportunities that she had going through another 4 years of it, learning her craft, she had more opportunities and knowing, not even opportunities, but knowing the exact area of what study that she wanted.
Yeah.
Where the 2-year accounting it was just accounting, and I didn't know anything more than I could be an accountant, but I did not want to be a CPA. It was just because, first of all, I didn't like doing taxes, and that was like, we all had to do that in our second year, and I'm like, that is not for me. But it's just to know the difference of what 2 years can do for you and what 4 years can do for you. I know that it's more expensive, but I think it really helped. It helps some to figure out, okay, and knowing that you can shift when you're starting you don't have to complete.
Yeah.
You can shift and, go all over the place until you figure out what it is.
Right.
And so the reason why I brought up the 22 years at Oracle is that it got me into Oracle, but to move from Oracle to anywhere else, I know that as a woman with a 2-year associate's, I was not as marketable. If I would have had that 4-year, and then the certifications afterwards. And the school that I went to for accounting was not accredited at the time. And so I would have had to start all over again.
Oh, that's a lot
even with certifications. Yeah. So
it's one thing to start from scratch when you're like early 20s. It's a different thing to start from scratch when you've already built years of your career.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I encourage both of my boys, to get a 4-year degree. And like I said, I know it's more expensive, and that it really, if you do it the right way with budgeting and not spending all your money when you're working, you can get through it with a lot less debt than what a lot of people are doing right now. Because right now, people, I think, take out those student loans and they live off of that. And that's the difficult piece of it.
That is really difficult. Yeah. So because of my husband being military, when we lived in Texas, at least we got in-state tuition. But as soon as I got married, my parents were like, we're not going to help you pay for college. They weren't very much pushing me to go to college in the first place because, again, I kind of came from a generation of you're just supposed to get married and have kids.
Yeah.
Well, I also saw a lot of women that were my age that got married to, their husbands right when they graduated from the Air Force Academy, and they immediately went into having kids. And I didn't want to be limited by that. We knew we wanted to have kids. But we didn't want to be limited to me not being able to get my education. So I think a big part of the push of me wanting to have higher education was the support of my husband. If it hadn't been for him believing that was valuable, it probably wouldn't have been something I continued to pursue.
Wow.
So he's played a huge part in who I am. Because he's always believed in me and pushed me to be a stronger person. And also being a military spouse, I think also taught me a lot of independence. I realized that, they're going to be gone. These guys are going to be gone, whether they're deployed or whether they have crazy work hours. And you have to figure out how to take care of the household and the budgeting and all the things, whether it's the car maintenance or,
isn't it crazy how many things you end up taking care of?
You just have to figure out how to take care of them because they're going to be gone.
So would you consider Jesse a role model of yours, or you probably would a little bit, but do you have any that you look at now as an adult, role models that you've had, or any big influences that you had?
I wouldn't call Jesse necessarily a role model. We've always been much more just partners. Really, I think that I've filled in a lot of gaps that he has as well. As far as role models, though, besides my mom, so she was a huge role model, but very sadly, she passed away when I was only 26 from a massive heart attack. So that was a real struggle and just a huge loss and shift in my life. And then
how did you get through that?
Boy, that was just a hard time. I just remember being in so much shock. I mean, again, when you're a military spouse, the person that you always know you're going to be able to depend on is the person that you're married to. And if you can't figure out that you can depend on them, then you're going to be on your own. So I always knew he's my best friend because he's the one that went through all the struggles with me. So leaning on him, yes, but most of all through my faith. My mom was a believer. She always took us to church. When I was in high school is when I actually became a Christian. And I just know that if it hadn't been the strength of my faith, that I would have just been devastated by her loss. But I knew that my mom was a believer. And my comfort has always been that I will see her again someday in heaven. I know for sure she's going to be there, and I know for sure that I'm going to be there. And we're going to have the biggest hug, the biggest reunion.
Yes, yeah.
And I can't wait to tell, her all the stories of my life and just be reunited with that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah.
That's the biggest thing of comfort and peace. Just knowing that it's not the end.
Yeah.
It's just a temporary goodbye.
Right. Well, so you have had, I don't know, how many years ago was your diagnosis? You've been through some difficult times.
Yeah. But... So in May of 2021, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. Very unexpectedly, because I always thought of myself as very healthy person, eating well, taking good care of myself, exercise regularly. And I was like, what is this thing that feels like a P in the edge of my chest? I'm like, this is not right. It couldn't be anything, right? And so I went to the doctor, and then they went ahead and finally, upon my insistence, did a biopsy. And then when I got the call and they said it was breast cancer, I couldn't believe it. I was just really in shock. And then there's a whole process of seeing doctors and trying to figure out how we were going to treat it. Because initially, I met with the doctor, and they were like, well, we could just do a lumpectomy and just be a little thing and it'll be gone and then back to normal life. Well, after doing more research and talking to more doctors, getting genetic testing, having some more scans and another consultation, they finally said, it was actually my oncologist who's seen thousands of women with breast cancer. She says, I really think you should get a double mastectomy. And I just broke down in shock and just tears of just weeping of loss. It was hugely shocking. And but because of my faith, I prayed over it. I had many people praying for me, and just a process of a few months, went ahead and did the double mastectomy. So that was 3 years ago. So
wow,
I'm a survivor.
That's where you and I reconnected, because I had seen that.
You must have seen my posts on social media that
and I was like, I am not going to let you go without at least seeing you one more time.
Yay! Thank you so much. Yeah, I had so many friends praying for me. I think that's what's important
too.
And reconnecting and reaching out to me. But some people don't feel comfortable sharing those things on social media and being open about their journey, fighting a very personal thing of breast cancer. But I felt like God called me to have a voice in that and share openly my journey, because it could save someone else.
Yeah.
And so because of that, one of my friends saw my story, and she called me up, and she's like, Susan, I feel something. I don't want to go to the doctor. I'm really scared, but I feel like this tenderness, this lump, there's something going on. And I was like, you need to go to the doctor. And she did, just in time. She ended up having some very advanced breast cancer. And in fact, she's still struggling with the results of the treatments and the surgeries. There's a lot of things that chemo and radiation do to damage your body, besides kill the cancer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of repercussions. So she's going to be fine. She's a survivor too. But back to the role models, I had one amazing role model many, many years ago, before I even had my daughter, that she got diagnosed with breast cancer. She had been a spiritual role model to me. We had done Bible studies together. She had honestly convicted me that I needed to get with it and have a baby. It was one of my role models that convicted me in that. But then she had gotten diagnosed with breast cancer and been very passionate about eating healthy, changing her diet, and doing everything possible to treat it in a more natural form. She finally decided to go and get radiation, but at that point it had already spread into her lymph nodes, and then it was into her bones, and she finally ended up having a tumor in her brain, and then passed from that. And then I also had a very good friend that passed from breast cancer and left behind 4 kiddos. She was our pastor's wife. Yeah, but she fought with tooth and nail and did everything that she could to fight and be alive for her kids. But that wasn't the end of her story. So, but the end of her story and both of those role model stories is that I will see them again.
Yeah,
I know that they are believers and their faith was so incredibly strong. And I believe that their journeys helped me have the strength to go through my battle with cancer as well.
Yeah.
But it was even scarier when I got diagnosed because I'd lost 2 good friends to cancer.
But yet, because of their experience and what they had been through, it probably gave you more strength to push forward.
Yes,
and fight for them because they weren't around anymore to fight.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I knew I had to fight.
Yeah.
I had to keep fighting cancer.
Yeah.
And fighting breast cancer. It's wicked.
Yeah. Yes.
But we were warriors and we were overcomers.
Yes. So what 3 words would describe you?
I have a lot of tenacity and independence. And then I have a lot of compassion.
Yeah.
Because I've dealt with so many difficult things.
Do you have anything on a bucket list or a wish list, travel wish list? I know you travel a lot, even though you were in the military. It just shocks me how, I mean, you didn't get tired of traveling. Huh?
No. And I'm sure like Jesse and I would love to like go travel to like Australia and New Zealand, like from reading C.S. Lewis and watching the movies. We're like, I want to go see where the hobbits lived. Let's go check out the Hobbit house.
Yeah.
So some fun things like that. That's a bucket thing. We love skiing. We love hiking. We love being in the outdoors. So I love to go to some of the national parks in Canada. I don't know if they'll let me back though.
Oh no, there's a story.
Well, we won't go into all of that detail.
If anybody wants to know, they can ask you.
They can ask me if they need to.
Last question. How do you get yourself out of a funk? Because you've obviously been in a few.
Yeah, funks are hard because I honestly think that I suffer from some seasonal depression. So it's not a thing sometimes that you can just like talk yourself out of, or you just can't deal with some of those things on your own. And so in my situation, I reached out and got professional help. And I think that if you really suffer from depression that is, diagnosed as not just the funk, you need to have serious medical help. I don't want to diminish it at all. I want to recognize that some people need the real deal. Sometimes there's just days when you don't feel good. Hey, maybe you need to just give yourself some grace and take it a little bit easier and, treat yourself to a nap. I think that a lot of our times in our society that we get depressed because we're just so tired.
You keep pushing, and you don't realize, you don't really read your body well enough to know that you need.
That affects our mental health. It really does. Or, you just need to cozy up by the fire and a good cup of tea and book.
Just take some downtime and find your space. And
I think in our society it's hard to take that downtime sometimes, but it's much needed.
I really appreciate you joining us today. I wish we had more time that we could sit and share, but we definitely, I think there is a time that we will have to have a second session.
Okay.
So I appreciate you joining today, and I do appreciate everybody else joining today and listening in on the Coffee with Sandy Pivotal Moments podcast. I am your mortgage advisor. I can actually help you look at your finances to help you figure out whether purchasing a house makes sense for you right now if you don't own one, or otherwise maybe even getting you into a refinance. Trying to give you some little bit of more money at the end of your month. Investment properties too are something that a lot of people look at as well and don't think outside of that when they have an opportunity. So please give me a call, reach out to me if you're interested in looking into that. And Susan, if you can let everybody know how to reach you.
Yeah, you can reach out to me. My phone number is 719-237-1999. Give me a call if you need any help on the banking side, because I focus on deposits and I do unsecured loans, do auto loans, some things like that. And also, hey, if you need a fun private in-home guided wine tasting, I can help you with that too.
Yes, she's very good at that. All right. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.